Can I ask you something a little personal? Have you ever walked into the kitchen, then stood there wondering, wait, why did I come in here? For many older Americans, small slips like these feel harmless, but they can be the early whispers of a brain asking for better care. Here's the truth. Your brain, though it weighs only about 3 pounds, consumes nearly 20% of your daily calories. It is the command center of your body, your memories, your personality, your independence all depend on it. When the brain runs low on fuel, those precious circuits can misfire, leading to forgetfulness, mood changes, or even long-term decline. That's why today, I want to gently challenge a common myth, the idea that carbohydrates are always bad for your brain. In reality, the brain lives on glucose, which comes from carbs. The key is knowing which carbs heal your brain rather than harm it. In this video, I'll share 6 surprisingly simple foods many of you may already have in your pantry that can protect memory, sharpen focus, and support long-term brain health. Some may shock you because they're often labeled as bad, but science tells a different story. So before you swear off bread, rice, or even potatoes, stay with me. You might just discover that the right carbs could be your brain's best ally. If you've ever worried about memory loss, type the number 1 inch the comments. If not, type 0, I'd love to know. And don't forget, hit subscribe and ring the bell so we can walk this journey of healthy aging together. Why the brain needs carbohydrates. Can I share a fact that surprises many of my patients? Even though your brain is only about 2% of your body weight, it consumes nearly 20% of the calories you eat each day. Think about that. Something so small as using almost 1/5 of your daily fuel. And what is its preferred fuel? Glucose, the simplest form of carbohydrate. Without a steady supply of glucose, brain cells cannot communicate properly. Neurons fire slower, memory retrieval becomes harder, and even your mood can swing up and down. That's why many older adults who try very low-carb diets often tell me they feel foggy, irritable, or tired. I once had a patient in his late 60s, a retired truck driver, who switched to a strict keto diet because he thought carbs were the enemy. Within weeks, he complained of headaches, dizziness, and forgetting simple tasks like paying bills on time. Once we reintroduced healthy carbs like brown rice and whole grain bread, his energy returned, and his memory slips improved noticeably. This doesn't mean all carbs are created equal. Sugary sodas, cookies, and processed snacks can spike your blood sugar, then crash it, leaving the brain starved. Over time, this roller coaster effect increases inflammation and oxidative stress, 2 key enemies of brain health. But when you choose the right carbs, you give your brain a steady, reliable stream of energy. Whole grains, potatoes, and even dried fruits like prunes provide more than glucose. They also deliver potassium, antioxidants, and B vitamins nutrients that repair and protect neurons. Here's something important. Studies from the National Institute on Aging have shown that diets rich in whole grains and fiber are linked to better memory performance in older adults. And a Harvard study confirmed that stable blood sugar, not spikes, is essential for keeping brain circuits sharp. So next time someone tells you that carbs make you slow, remember, it is not the carb itself, but the type that matters. Let me ask you this. Have you ever felt your concentration crash mid-morning only to realize you skipped breakfast or had just coffee with sugar? That's your brain calling for real fuel. Drop a comment. Do you feel more focused when you eat whole grains compared to skipping carbs? I'd love to hear your story. The hidden dangers of cutting carbs completely. Have you ever tried cutting out all carbs, thinking it would make you healthier? Many Americans over 60 have. The promise sounds tempting. Lose weight fast, improve blood sugar, boost energy. But here's the danger. When you take carbs away completely, your brain and body begin to struggle in ways you may not notice at first. Think of your body like a car. Carbs are your gasoline. Yes, you can run on emergency fuel for a while, like fat converted into ketones, but it was never designed to be the main system for long-term brain health. Without glucose, your brain cells fire slower, your attention drops, and your memory falters. I once treated a woman in her early 70s who proudly told me she had cut out bread, rice, and fruit for 6 months. At first, she lost 10 pounds, but soon she complained of constant fatigue, nighttime leg cramps, and feeling foggy during conversations. Her daughter noticed she repeated the same questions at family dinners. When we slowly reintroduced healthy carbs, like sweet potatoes and brown rice, her clarity returned, and her mood lifted within weeks. Scientific studies support this. Research published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that older adults on chronically low-carb diets performed worse on memory tests compared to those with balanced diets, including whole grains. Another study from Tufts University showed that stable carbohydrate intake supports better concentration and reduces the risk of cognitive decline. There is another hidden danger. Extreme carb restriction can trigger vitamin and mineral deficiencies. Whole grains and fruits are primary sources of B vitamins, potassium, and antioxidants, all crucial for protecting neurons. Without them, the brain becomes more vulnerable to oxidative stress and inflammation, both linked to Alzheimer's and dementia. Now, I am not saying carbs should be eaten without limit. Too much refined sugar is harmful, but swinging to the other extreme, zero carbs, is just as dangerous. Balance is the key. Let me ask you, have you or someone you know ever tried a no-carb diet? How did it affect your energy or memory? Share your story in the comments. I guarantee others will relate. And remember this simple phrase: protect your brain before it needs saving. Choosing the right carbs is not indulgence, it is brain insurance. Potatoes, the brain's electrical messenger. When most people hear the word potato, they immediately picture French fries, crispy, salty, golden brown, and dripping with oil. But here's the truth. Potatoes themselves are not the problem. The way we prepare them, island. Potatoes are one of the richest natural sources of potassium, a mineral your brain desperately needs. Why? Because potassium controls the tiny electrical impulses that allow brain cells to talk to one another. Imagine billions of small electrical sparks firing every second. Without potassium, those sparks weaken and communication slows. That means learning becomes harder, concentration drifts, and memory fades more easily. Yet, according to the USDA, over 90% of Americans do not get enough potassium in their daily diet. For older adults, this deficiency can worsen brain fatigue, increase blood pressure, and even trigger muscle weakness. I remember a gentleman in his mid-60s, a retired high school teacher, who came to me with complaints of constant brain fog. He avoided potatoes completely because he thought they were fattening. After reviewing his diet, I noticed his potassium intake was less than half the recommended amount. We added back roasted potatoes, skin on, lightly seasoned, not fried, and within 2 months, his clarity improved. He told me, "Doctor, I feel like someone just cleaned the fog off my windshield." Of course, not all potato dishes are equal. French fries and potato chips, loaded with trans fats and salt, can damage blood vessels and inflame the brain. But baked, boiled, or roasted potatoes provide steady energy, potassium, and vitamin C without the harmful extras. Here's a simple trick. Leave the skin on. That's where much of the potassium and fiber are concentrated. A medium baked potato with skin provides almost 900 milligrams of potassium That's nearly 20% of your daily need. So, before you banish potatoes from your plate, remember they can be a friend to your brain when prepared wisely. Think of them as nature's electrical stabilizer for your neurons. Let me ask you, when you think of potatoes, do you think of French fries first or baked and roasted dishes? Comment below. I'd love to see how many of us fall into the fry trap. And if you want to keep your memory sharp, don't fear the potato. Instead, fear the fryer. Prunes, the dried fruit with hidden power. When people think of dried fruit, they often wrinkle their noses and say, too much sugar. And yes, many store-bought dried fruits are coated with added sugars. But prunes dried plums are a very different story. Naturally sweet, prunes contain zero added sugar if you choose the right kind. What they do have is a treasure chest of polyphenol antioxidants. These powerful compounds protect the brain from oxidative stress, the slow rusting process that damages neurons over time. Oxidative stress and inflammation are two of the biggest villains in brain aging. Left unchecked, they contribute to memory loss, mood changes, and even Alzheimer's disease. But here's the hopeful part. Eating foods rich in antioxidants, like prunes, can act like putting a shield around your neurons. I recall a patient in her late 60s who struggled with poor circulation and occasional memory lapses. She admitted she rarely ate fruit because she thought fruit sugar was just as bad as candy. I encouraged her to try a handful of prunes each afternoon instead of cookies. Within 3 months, not only did her digestion improve thanks to the fiber, but she told me she felt sharper during her evening Bible study group. That's the brain-boosting power of natural antioxidants at work. Science supports her experience. A study published in Food and Function in 2021 showed that prune antioxidants improved blood flow and reduced markers of inflammation. Better circulation means more oxygen and nutrients delivered directly to brain cells, keeping memory and learning functions alive. Now, let's be clear. Moderation matters. A handful is perfect. Eating the whole bag at once will upset your stomach and spike blood sugar, just like any food. But when eaten wisely, prunes are not just an old-fashioned digestive aid. They are, in many ways, a modern brain food. So let me ask you, do you prefer your fruit fresh, or are you open to adding dried options like prunes into your daily routine? Comment below, I'd love to know your taste. And remember, don't fear natural sweetness, fear the artificial kind. Honey, a sweetness that heals. When you think of sweeteners, what comes to mind first? White sugar, candy, soda, things we know aren't good for the brain. But honey, nature's golden syrup, offers something entirely different. Honey has more than just a sweet flavor. It contains phenolic antioxidants and bioactive compounds that reduce inflammation and protect the nervous system. Research published in the Journal of Medicinal Food has shown that honey can improve memory and even have neuroprotective effects, meaning it shields brain cells from damage. I had a patient, a 72-year-old grandmother, who loved her afternoon tea. For years, she used 2 teaspoons of white sugar. She often complained of afternoon crashes, feeling tired, irritable, and foggy. I suggested she swap the sugar for a drizzle of raw honey. 3 months later, she told me, "Doctor, my tea feels like medicine now. I don't get the same crash. I even remember my grandchildren's school schedules better." Here's the secret. Unlike refined sugar, honey doesn't just spike blood sugar and vanish. Its antioxidants help stabilize blood vessels and improve circulation, so the brain receives a steadier flow of oxygen and nutrients. And when used in cooking, honey can make brain-healthy foods more appealing. A thin glaze on omega-3 rich salmon or a swirl in plain yogurt turns nutrition into pleasure. Of course, moderation matters. Honey is still a sugar. Too much can overwhelm your system. But replacing refined sugar with honey in small daily amounts is a powerful step toward better brain health. Think of it this way. Eating white sugar is like pouring acid on metal. It corrodes over time. Eating honey, instead, is like coating that metal with polish. It protects and strengthens. Let me ask you, do you use honey in your daily routine, or do you still reach for the sugar bowl? Comment below, I'd love to know your habit. And remember, not all sweetness is your enemy. Some sweetness can be your brain's ally. Whole grain bread and brown rice. Steady energy for lasting memory. Do you remember the last time you felt your energy crash just 2 hours after breakfast? Maybe you had a white bagel or a bowl of sugary cereal. Quick energy in, quick energy out. The brain doesn't like that roller coaster. That's where whole grains come in, foods like whole grain bread and brown rice. Unlike white bread or white rice, which are stripped of fiber and nutrients, whole grains keep the bran and germ intact. This means they take longer to digest, releasing glucose slowly and steadily into your bloodstream. Why does this matter for your brain? Because your neurons need a stable energy supply. When blood sugar spikes and crashes, your memory, focus, and even mood go up and down with it. But when glucose enters slowly, your brain performs consistently like a well-tuned engine that hums all day instead of sputtering. Whole grains also bring something extra: B vitamins like thiamine, niacin, and folic acid. These vitamins are essential for producing neurotransmitters, the brain's chemical messengers. Without them, nerve signals weaken, leading to brain fog and fatigue. I had a patient, a 65-year-old veteran, who swore by white bread and instant white rice. He said brown rice was too chewy and whole grain bread was for rabbits. But his main complaint was memory lapses, forgetting names, losing track of appointments. After some persuasion, he agreed to swap half of his white bread for whole grain and add brown rice twice a week. Within months, his wife reported he was sharper and less irritable in the afternoons. He later told me, "Doctor, I didn't know bread could change my brain. Science backs this up." A Harvard School of Public Health study found that older adults who ate more whole grains had a significantly lower risk of cognitive decline compared to those who ate mostly refined grains. Here's the takeaway. Your brain doesn't just need energy. It needs steady, nutrient-rich energy. Think of white bread like a match-quick flame, then gone. Whole grain bread is like a campfire, log, steady warmth that lasts. So let me ask you, do you still prefer white bread and white rice? Or have you tried making the switch to whole grain? Drop a comment. I'd love to know your taste and your experience. Remember, it's not about cutting carbs. It's about choosing the carbs that keep your memory strong. Enriched grains. When science adds nutrition, sometimes science quietly works in the background, saving lives without fanfare. One powerful example is enriched grains, wheat, rice, pasta, and cereals fortified with folic acid. Back in 1998, the United States made it mandatory to enrich certain grains with folic acid, a B vitamin critical for brain and nervous system development. The results were astonishing. Within a decade, the CDC reported a 35% drop in neural tube defects in newborns. That's thousands of families spared heartbreak, all thanks to a simple vitamin added to everyday foods. But folic acid doesn't only matter for pregnancy. For older adults, it plays a vital role in keeping homocysteine levels in check. High homocysteine has been linked to cognitive decline, memory loss, and increased risk of stroke. By eating enriched grains, you are not just filling your stomach, you are fortifying your brain. I remember counseling a 70-year-old gentleman who was very strict about only eating all natural foods. He avoided anything labeled fortified or enriched. Yet, he constantly complained of fatigue and mild forgetfulness. Blood tests showed his folate levels were low. After we reintroduced enriched whole wheat pasta and fortified breakfast cereals into his diet, his energy improved, and his wife noticed fewer lapses in conversation. He told me later, "Doctor, I used to think enriched meant fake. Now I see it means smarter." Of course, balance matters. Enriched grains should not replace whole grains, but complement them. Half of your daily grains should be whole, and the other half can be enriched. This way, you get the steady energy of whole grains plus the targeted nutrients from enrichment. Think of it like this: whole grains are nature's foundation, and enriched grains are science's reinforcement. Together, they make a stronger structure for your brain. Let me ask you, when you shop for bread, rice, or pasta, do you look for whole grain or enriched on the label, or do you avoid both? Comment below. I'd love to know how you choose. And remember, sometimes science isn't the enemy of nature. Sometimes it is nature's best partner. Let me leave you with this thought. Aging is not the enemy. Neglect island. Every wrinkle tells a story, every gray hair carries wisdom, and every memory is a treasure. But memories need a safe home, the brain, to survive, and that home needs daily care, just like a garden that must be watered. We've talked today about 6 simple foods: potatoes, prunes, honey, whole grain bread, brown rice, and enriched grains. None of them are exotic or expensive. They're ordinary, everyday foods you can find in any American kitchen. Yet together, they provide the nutrients, the antioxidants, and the steady energy your brain needs to stay sharp well into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. The lesson is clear. Carbs are not the villain. Choosing wisely makes them your brain's ally. It's not about restriction. It's about nourishment. I want you to believe this deeply. It is never too late to strengthen your brain. Even small changes, switching from white rice to brown, from white sugar to honey, from fries to roasted potatoes, can ripple into better memory, better focus, and a brighter mood. So here's my question for you. If you could pick just one change to start tomorrow, which food from today's list would you add to your plate? Type your answer in the comments. I read them, and your story could inspire someone else your age. And before you go, do me a favor. Share this video with a friend who may be worried about memory loss. Sometimes, a single tip can change someone's life. Finally, make sure you subscribe and ring the bell so we can continue walking this journey together, protecting our brains before they need saving. Because your mornings matter, and so does your health.